Association. Good morning, sir, and I don't know if you've caught up with how we do this, but you have 10 minutes, and if you wish us to ask you questions, take it as read, that we've read your submission. If you want to add anything to that, and then we will ask you questions if that's what you want. It's your time, so good morning.
Thank you, Mr Chairman and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to come along and talk to you today. My name is Mark Maxwell. I'm the General Manager of the Student Association out at EIT. Our region faces some interesting demographics. 19% of our young people are not in education, employment or training, and that needs to change. And EIT, I would suggest, needs to be a big part of that change. And EIT is doing a great job. I'm not sure if many of you are aware, but EIT recently scored the highest possible rankings for the NZQA External Evaluation and Review. We've got a great campus, we've got a great teaching staff out there at EIT, but we've got a few little issues as well with some of our students. This year the Student Association has brought on board as a pilot project a budget advisor, and I've been quite staggered at some of the stories that are arriving, because as we're aware, costs for everybody, but including students, rise every year, but with the state of government finances and so forth, the corresponding incomes don't increase by a similar amount. So just last week we had a young chap and his girlfriend who are living in a car with a whole range of financial issues. We've got other people who are living in questionable housing arrangements, and so many issues that arise, including advocacy issues, have a financial element. So what we've been looking at the Student Association is where can we spend our time and what can we look at that might make a difference in students' lives. And one of those areas we believe we started looking in was transport. Now for a student, and I acknowledge that there are discounted rates for students already provided on public transport with the buses. But one of the issues is some of our students, even with those discounted rates, their transport costs can be around 10% of their income. We thought, well, this might be one area that we could have a look at. So what we're really proposing, and in my submission I've suggested that we'd like all of the councils to come together to join a project, and that's really our primary, I want to make that clear, that's our primary request, is that we bring the stakeholders together for a project. I have put an indicative amount in there based on what I'm aware the costs were in the Manawatu. I spent some time in economic development down in the Manawatu, and we had free buses there. But really that was just an indication. Our submission is really that the council would join a project to investigate the provision of free buses for students, because one of the most important things once we've got students registered is getting them into class. And we're finding increasingly that a number of our students are not turning up to class because they don't have money for petrol or bus fare or whatever it may be, and it's quite disheartening at times to see students turn up and asking for FPOS withdrawals of $1.50 at the end of the week, and that declines. So they ask for $1 and that declines, and they ask for 50 cents and that might go through, and that's how much they've got left. So this is a very real problem. At a recent student rep meeting, everybody knew of at least one student who hadn't attended class because they couldn't get there, and that to me is a real shame. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Councillor Scott.
Have you approached EIT to, I know you've read the staff responses, and I see
yes,
that other, where it is free, elsewhere it is the institute that is funding it. Have you approached the EIT?
I've made EIT aware that we are submitting to the councils, and we haven't had any comment back from them as to whether they would be funding. Certainly I would imagine that they will be a stakeholder within the project. But similarly with students, educational institutions essentially have a largely capped budget. The government any increases in revenue comes from students as opposed to government funding. So I think most institutions are under financial stresses as well, and I believe that graduating well-educated, well-rounded students is good for all of us in the community, and that this is something that perhaps the community could look at contributing to.
Thank you, Councillor Dick.
saying that in Manawatu that bus services to Massey or whatever.
Sorry, Councillor, the microphone, please.
I'm just asking the question as to whether in Manawatu, Palmerston North, bus fares are free for students.
Yes, they are. They have been for some years, and there was a significant increase in bus use. First of all, it was UCOL that came on board with, partnered up for free buses, and there was a 50% increase in bus usage by students. And then once Massey University came on board with the free buses as well, total bus usage increased by 100% is my understanding.
And other centres and other institutions that you know of?
Not that I know of. I know Otago was, the Student Association was trying to submit to putting forward a project to try and get free buses. I'm not sure whether they were successful at this stage.
Thanks.
And so, thanks, Chair. What happens if that student just shows his card, does he? And then he gets the...
Yeah,
so
the student ID card.
And is that solid? Like, can that be corrupted in any way? Is that...
Sorry, can be corrupt?
Well,
can they be forged?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know much about forging, but but I guess anything's forgeable. But I mean, EIT issues the student ID cards, so I don't imagine that there'd be a high demand for forgery to just get on a bus for free necessarily. But I guess it's possible.
Excuse me. Obvious for somebody like him trying to get on the bus, though, wouldn't it?
Well, there are new age limits for studying that the government's brought in, so I guess that may disqualify some. Yeah.
Hand over to the Deputy for a second. Councillor Scott.
If I could change tack a little bit on this one, what percentage of your students bike?
Not as many as we'd like, I think, but certainly that's another area that we're looking at. How can we're looking at bike security as one of our next projects as well, because we've had a number of thefts of bikes on campus. It's hard to tell who is a student and who's not on campus, so hopefully if we can look at the security side, that may bring it. But biking, I think, is not an option for some, the campus being right in the sort of the middle of the two cities. And then needing to get back for jobs, part-time jobs, childcare, those sorts of things. Biking and the time it would take is not for some, but it's certainly an area we would like to see increased as well.
Further questions?
Have you actually researched how many of your students are using the buses at the present time? What percentage? And then what percentage are got their own private vehicles?
We haven't as yet, and I would imagine that would be part of the project that we're suggesting. This issue has come to light this year primarily, and we wanted to take the opportunity as part of the long-term plans with the councils to put our project forward. So we haven't had the time to go through all of that, but certainly there would need to be robust process behind any final decision.
Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Chair. I see that you're suggesting we partner with the territorial authorities.
Yes.
Have you approached them at this point in time, and do you have any feedback from your proposal from them?
Yes, I submitted to Hastings District Council last week, and I think I received fairly favourable comments from the councillors in there that in theory they were quite supportive of the concept. But and that's really what we're trying to test is let's find out what the cost would be, and what the implications on usage of public transport would be, and then make a final determining factor decision down the track. When it, as I say, the $100,000 I put in there is just an indication based on what I think it might be.
Councillor Belford.
I was just going to ask Councillor Dick, actually, would it really require $100,000 to understand the answer to the question he's posing as to what the impact would be on something like this?
I honestly don't know off the cuff, but I suspect that we'll have a look at it. I was going to ask the question, could a student loan be used or part of to buy discounted bus passes?
Students can withdraw on their student loan for living costs to a set level,
Okay.
and so that is what's happening with a lot of students. at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And a sincere thank you for skipping forward a couple of days and making yourself available.
Oh,
so
no, my pleasure. It was we were swapping messages over times and didn't quite get it right.
that helps us on the third day. So thank you very much, and we will be in touch. Thank you. Right, well, we have OSPRI New Zealander here now. Good morning. Are you guys happy to be a bit earlier than suggested?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's part 2, page 28.
So, Dennis, you're happy to be part of this? So we'll merge your times together, and always happy. Yeah. Okay.
So Mr. Mitchell's submission is part 5, submission 126. 12.
So we're just passing around some handouts, Chair.
Thank you. So everyone's got both submissions there in front of them. We'll kick off then. So good morning, people. Welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you today. We've been in front of council a number of times in the past, which we acknowledge, and we would certainly, hopefully, also acknowledge that this might be the last time that we're coming to talk to you in this role. If I could introduce our team, I'm Stu Hutchings. I'm a group manager for OSPRI New Zealand, and we've got Dennis Mitchell, who I'm sure you all know, who is our chair of our Tbfree committee. Sara Russell-Muti, who is our communications and regional area liaison person, and Kevin Sigalo from the Napier office. So, as I said, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and talk to you. What I would like to do is just, I guess, give some background to why we are here for this time. As you will all be aware, or potentially aware, Tbfree New Zealand went through a funding review process last year, and that review process looked at the principles by which funding should be undertaken for the Tbfree program. One of those principles that was found was that landowners were a significant beneficiary of the Tbfree program, and that they therefore required somebody to be collecting on their behalf towards that benefit for Tbfree. Historically, that collection has always been through regional councils. One of the principles that was found in that funding review is that regional councils were demonstrably stating that they didn't really wish to be the collection agency on behalf of landowners. And so all of the stakeholders and funders then went through a process of saying, well, because we can't agree on all of this, what we want to do is actually review the whole Tbfree strategy. So they then undertook to do that, and we're right in the middle of that review process at this point. What that did is unfortunately put us in the position of having a transition year before that new funding regime then came into place from 2016 forward, and has meant that we have then had to come back to regional councils and say, could you please collect on behalf of the landowners for one more year? So that's kind of putting the situation for you. So we certainly appreciate you giving us the time to talk about that. What we're asking for in terms of our request is a contribution of $60,000 towards the Hawke's Bay Regional Council program. This is a sum that we have worked out as being workable, I guess, with staff, and I certainly very much appreciate the open attitude that we've had and our ability to work with the staff to come up with that figure towards a program of around $4.8 million for the region. We've also worked out that that would include, or there would be in addition to that, an ability to carry forward any funds not utilised from this current 14-15 year towards that program as well. part of what we did discuss with staff is that one of the significant aspects of the program in this region is that we've been working very closely allowing transition from our control program for possums through into a maintenance program with bait station regime for the council to be able to maintain the gains or keep the possum numbers at a low level. So that's part of how we've worked through this transition year for 15-16 is that council will take over the installation of that bait station regime once we have actually eradicated or declared eradicated some land area. So we certainly do, as I say, appreciate that long-running support that we've had from you historically. So just to give you an update on the program nationally, so New Zealand-wide, we're down to a very low level at the moment of only 49 infected herds, which is pretty good progress. We've never been below 50 herds before, ever, and that's down from nearly 690 in the year 2000, so it's been a significant reduction. 15 of those herds only are in the North Island and the rest are in the South Island, and there's only 2 of those that are deer herds, and they're both in the South Island. So to date we've actually managed to eradicate just over 1 million hectares of area that we know that has been infected in the possum or wildlife population, and that's towards our target that we've had in our current strategy of 2.5 million hectares by 2026. So we're significantly ahead of the program that we hope to be, so we're very pleased with that progress. And associated with that eradication, there's been significant biodiversity gains as well. Probably some of New Zealand's biggest gains year on year come through the Tbfree program. So we feel that it's really important long term that we're able to keep the foot on the gas, to put it in a colloquial sort of term, and keep maintaining that progress. So the eradication is very much a team game. It's very much something that we do in partnership with regional councils, with DOC, with our industry funders, the dairy, beef and deer sectors, and with Crown through MPI. So it's being a combined effort, and it's been very successful because of that combined effort and working with the farmers to try and make sure that we keep our focus in the areas where they are important. So if we look at the Hawke's Bay program and what we've achieved to date, there's only 1 herd remaining in the Hawke's Bay region, and that's sitting right on the boundary at the end of the Napier-Taupo Road, but it is included in the Napier-Taihape Road. Sorry, yes, it's wrong in there. We've successfully eradicated up till now nearly 25,000 hectares in this region, and in the end of June this year we'll have a further 47,800 that will be declared eradicated, taking the total to about 72,500 hectares out of our aim for the region of 176,000. So really good progress being made there. So this year's coming program is predominantly focused around that eradication program, and we do have some maps here that if you have a look at the map that has the green and... Did you hand out the maps, Sarah? No? So they'll come round. So the maps that we'll hand out are just going to show you the area that we have actually currently eradicated, which will be the grey areas, and the areas that we've got for eradication, which will be the dark blue areas. So that's just to give you an indication of the areas that we'll move out of and that'll get eventually transitioned across for bait station regime and maintenance. So just in closing, I guess what I would like to do is just summing up, saying that the TB fight has been a really fantastic example of cross-region and cross-party collaboration with everybody, and we would really like to ask that we have the council endorse this funding for this one more year for the 15-16. What I'd like to do is pass over to Dennis to have some comments from him.
Can they leave some time for questions?
Well, they've combined two prezos, so we've got another 10 minutes.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, yes. So.
Thanks, Stu. And just for those who don't know me, I'm a sheep and beef farmer from up the Taupo Road at Eland. I've farmed there for over 40 years. And my role locally is chair of the Tbfree committee, and we support the implementation of this program on the ground in our region for what was the Animal Health Board and is now OSPRI. And I guess I just have a simple message today, really. It's just to emphasise just how important this program has been for farmers and how important it continues to be in terms of protecting our export trade, of protecting our livelihoods and all the downstream effects that has for us as farmers and for our wider communities. In Hawke's Bay, we've had a very successful program over many years now, and that's because we've worked very closely with Council, and because Council has its own very good pest control program as well, and we've always worked together and dovetailed those two programs, and in that way we've always got the best and most cost-effective results, not just for landowners but for the region as a whole. So I just want to emphasise just how important that has been historically. And as Stuart's mentioned, going forward, the funding mechanism will probably be outside of Council after this year, but I would certainly like to see that relationship maintained, because for that simple reason, to keep the two programs working together and supporting each other. And again, as Stuart has said, we really appreciate the positive attitude that Council have taken this year in ensuring that we do have some funding and we do have a program going ahead to protect all the long-term investment that we've made to date. So I think that's essentially all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additions there? We'll get straight into questions. Perhaps Councillor Scott.
I'm not sure if my question's for Ms Hutchins or for Mr Adey, but the 60,000 plus the carry forward impact on rates, this is already provided for, is it? Is it rates neutral?
Yes, it's already provided for within those two programs, yes.
So you're asking to continue to support what has been suggested in the plan?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Dick.
Yes, thanks very much. What's the implication if we didn't carry forward this funding? You say a reduction in funding would mean a reduction in the program by that amount. Or is there some greater leverage that the 60,000 generates?
In the past, there has been a greater leverage that the council funds have leveraged. It's from Crown, it has been a one-to-one funding, so $1 lost from council has been $1 lost from Crown, and there's also been a leverage impact from the industry funding. Because this is a transition year and kind of almost one out of the box, if you like, those leverage impacts have been removed. So we've just had confirmation post-budget that the Crown will pay its full share for this year, and that as far as I'm aware, will not have any leverage component. So if the council chose not to fund, then to be honest, it would just, our program would only reduce by that 60,000 and no other impact.
Thank you.
Councillor Hewitt.
I'm wondering if you had maps that included Central Hawke's Bay. Just to flag, we still have an ongoing problem in my neck of the woods, and the work is terribly important. But yeah, what's going on down there?
So what we do have is maps showing the program for the 15-16 year, so showing what work is actually going to be done, which demonstrates which areas will be done by aerial and which areas will be done by ground control. So putting that in context, that is only the 15-16 year though, because what happens is work gets staggered over a period of time depending on the priorities in the work program.
So Central Hawke's Bay is not included on any of these maps, so. Look at all this. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Which is
as far as Central Hawke's Bay goes.
Could you just use a microphone, please?
Sorry. Just lift that up, Kevin.
Thanks.
As far as Central Hawke's Bay goes, we're not controlling the disease down there. The Rangitoto area around the Waipawa and area hasn't had any control for some years. and Weber, right down on our southern TMA boundary. That also hasn't had control for several years, and that's based on the understanding that the disease is not there, which of course is our focus. It's not necessarily on possums.
And it would be my understanding that where our Tbfree program is not providing control, that the council's own PCA program is controlling those areas. So that might be the way to direct that query.
So just to sum up, the focus of the program is around eradication of bovine tuberculosis rather than eradication of possums. So possums are a carrier of the disease, and the aim of the program is that we suppress the possum numbers to such a low level that the disease can't survive in their population any longer. And then so when the disease disappears, we then stop our control work and declare that area eradicated of TB. But unless with the good council work of the PCA program then coming in behind us, that's what is then driven to keeping the possum numbers low on an ongoing basis for biodiversity purposes.
On the way, we're to move tests in Central Hawke's Bay that are coming back false positive.
Yes, so the surveillance of herds will still carry on, and certainly happy to answer any questions around testing if you wish.
Just that question, if I may, Mr. Chair, and that was around your statistics, 15 infected herds in the North Island. When did we last have an infected herd? I know we've gone Tb-free twice. So when was our last infected, and how close are these 15 infected herds?
So a lot of the infected herds currently, we have a number scattered around Waikato, some down in the Wairarapa, Taranaki, so none very close to here. Probably just the Ngāmatea herd, yes, is the, yep.
And when were we last, how long have we now been TB-free the second
Apart
time
from
round?
that one, so the herd before that was in Otani, and that was last year. It went clear, or earlier this year, I think, so. Yep.
And that herd was a trader who
Yes,
tidied
so
it up
it was a
pretty quickly.
movement related.
A movement related, that one, yeah. Other questions? One's got enough information there. Thank you very much. Thank you for making the effort to travel. Very a good comprehensive submission, and we will be back to you, and well, both of you in due course.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.